Our next speaker, Mr. Ryan Steelberg. He is the president and co-founder of Veritone. You'll see their really cool booth right outside here. But Ryan also is a wealth of information, having spent his time at the intersection of advertising, broadcasting, and customer experience. Veritone is a publicly traded company. They're on the leading edge of so many components of AI, and I'm really excited to hear Ryan basically lay out the vision as it relates to synthetic media, as it must be thought of as an extension of your identity. Ryan, come on up. Let's give it up for Mr. Ryan Steelberg, please.
It's great to see trade shows and conferences open back up post-COVID. Thank you, Pete and team and the VOICE22. It's a stacked house, and this is a great event. We have a lot of Veritonians here today, so our booth's right outside, so I'm going to go pretty quickly today. Frankly, my best and brightest are here, and then they're hopefully ready and willing to dive in and answer any questions you guys have. But what I'm going to talk about today is, there's a lot of discussions. We're prepared to discuss in depth the conversational AI components of voice. What I'm going to spend a little bit of time about is actually the voice itself. And more importantly, for many of our customers is IP ownership, right? How does the law, if there are statutory law as compared to common law, how do they view your digital identity, right? We are moving into a world where that like many new technologies, the early purveyors of such technologies and promoters of technologies, as actually was just mentioned at the end of his presentation, are bad actors. Right? We're dealing with lots of deep fakes, misappropriation of name and likeness, particularly as we talk about elections and whatnot. We are all into this. So if we want to go to the first slide, I think I'm in charge now. We'll do it right here. There we go. So real quick a little bit about Veritone. We mentioned we're a public company. We're an enterprise AI company that services a little over 1,000 media and entertainment companies, state and local law enforcement, DOJ. We are sort of a general platform for AI and machine learning, but we do have a very specific practice on media, entertainment, and advertising. The use cases are kind of all across the map, but for what we're really talking here today about is what we're doing and how we're leveraging synthetic voice and marketing and taking those to market with our partners and our customers. 3 reasons why we should be up here speaking and why this technology, synthetic voice, is important to Veritone is number one, one of our companies that is a subsidiary of Veritone is Veritone One, which is the largest media agency for audio on the performance side. We're the largest podcast media agency. We'll invest more ad dollars on behalf of our customers into podcasting and other forms of influential marketing than really any other company. We produce hundreds of thousands of pieces of copy every single year. One of the ideas of why we sort of launched our passion and push into synthetic voice was frankly cost savings. We were spending so much time in production studios producing new ad copy to be integrated with the podcast and streaming audio platforms that we felt there had to be a better solution. So much of this copy is simple localization of it. So for example, if I have a presentation for HelloFresh and talking about their new products and services they want to bring for direct-to-consumer delivery to your home, the only thing we wanted to change was, let's say, a promo code, a discount, or the mention of a city. So we said, well, what if, right, we could create, using the same talent, right, that they've already invested in their brand ambassador, could I create a synthetic version with enough quality that I could actually be broadcast quality and distribute that and automate that process, automate the localization of the ad creative. So that's one example of how it's got into the space. Another one is we're in the licensing business of content. So if I take a company like CBS News, Mr. Walter Cronkite, that voice and footage, which was synthetic, forgot to let you know all those voices you heard were synthetically generated, and those were all synthetic versions of those clients of ours. But CBS News is one of our large customers, both from a technology perspective. We help ingest and index and organize their petabytes of content. But we now have been working with them to isolate the legacy audio from a lot of their marquee and iconic content and have created, in coordination with the estate of Mr. Cronkite, the synthetic version of his voice, right? So they can remaster old footage or come up with brand new, entirely new programs or new features. So we are big into licensing. And the reason I mention the licensing side of our business is it's all about IP integrity. Our job, right, is to go out and monetize CBS News' content when we license it. So when you see Apollo moon landing footage show up in movies, or activations of March on Washington and I Have a Dream speech from CBS News in Fortnite, the metaverse, the video game, that's us. We help license that. So we are a protector of IP rights. So as we move into voice, we really started to evaluate, what does it mean? What does it mean with your digital identity as it relates to case law, statutory law, or common law? I live in California. A lot of our media and entertainment customers are based in California. California has by far the most progressive laws protecting people's identities, name and likeness. This is also crossed over into their digital identities, right? So a digital representation of Mr. Cronkite, whether it's his voice or an avatar or whatnot. In most other areas of the country and around the world, it's mostly common law-ish, meaning that they're really looking at the evaluation of the integrity of that IP, right, or the publicity rights as it relates to previous case law. So we live in a world, name and likeness is kind of big in the news today. You know, really college athletics, when the NCAA said it was okay for college athletes to do licensing or endorsement deals, it sped up everything. Everything got kind of crazy really fast. Through that process, different opinions, law firms, and others really all started building practices to really understand the nuances of copyright, personal identifiable copyright or publicity rights for my brand, my name and likeness. So our position is we think that this is time for legitimate companies to take a stand and make sure that we assert the IP integrity of everybody's voice, of everybody's name and likeness, whether that's the way I look, with me on video, my voice, right, et cetera. These are all critical components of IP that, for many people, it's how they make a living, right? It's what creates, Walter Cronkite is not just the way he looks, it's the iconic voice. That is Walter Cronkite. You can't think of Mr. Cronkite without listening to his voice. So, as I mentioned, in California, there's actually statutory law, right, that gives ownership and authority of your name and likeness that you own. One interesting nuance is that so much of this iconic talent, I just showed you two individuals, Mr. Vin Scully recently just passed away, that many of you know, is you have to register your name and likeness attributes within a certain period of time after you pass away, right? So your estate does, your family. So this is something that actually people have to think about, right? Something that think about in their estate planning, in their will, is who is going to have control, if you want to use that term, of my name and likeness attributes after I die. In California, you have a period of time where after someone passes away, you have to register, right? And they actually have a global registry for this. If you don't, it turns into almost public domain, right? So even iconic individuals, their name and likeness, when they pass away, at a period of time that becomes public domain. So for many of those who are in the business of broadcast, or I'll say of licensed and proprietary content, it's imperative that you talk to your corporate counsel, talk to your legal partners, come talk to us at Veritone, and let us help educate you on what you need to do to protect your IP, right? And whether that's legacy footage from an archive, or it's a new influencer or a TikToker that you're working with. Yeah, I kind of touched on this a little bit, but as we see a lot, deepfakes are still dominating a lot of what you see for the larger celebrities. Where I believe this is going, in working with a lot of Hollywood production studios, many of which are our clients, you're going to start to see in every writer of a production, when an actor or a talent, I don't care if it's Tom Hanks or an up-and-comer, there's going to be a digital twin writer in every single agreement, and it's going to give either express licensed usage or prohibit such usage, right, that they could use digital voice for remastering or editing. So for you can imagine, you're shooting a very expensive production with Tom Hanks, you finish, there's always going to be mistakes, right? He said something wrong, you need to do editing, you need to do retakes. Often they just cut that stuff out, right? Because it's too cost prohibitive to get them back in. Now, very cost effectively, using the same production tools they've been using historically in terms of editing, they can leverage, if they have the rights in the contract, to use Tom Hanks's digital voice to do that editing, right? And remaster it and recut it, right? So, obviously there's lots of bodies here behind it. SAG and include Screen Actors Guild and other governing bodies are involved in this, right? There's lobbying efforts to continue. So you're going to see statutory law, in my opinion, start to expand across the United States as compared to just being, I'll say, common law warfare for trying to protect someone's digital identity. Use cases. So when we first launched this, I mentioned the one where we were trying to localize ad copy. It was literally a utility tool that we're trying to do it. As soon as we went out there, it's been incredible. Hence, look at the size of this crowd here in this industry. The number of use cases that have, we've ideated ourselves, or our clients or partners or new startups have brought to us. There is a place for conversational AI and synthetic voice in almost every application I can think of, right? Specifically in media and entertainment and advertising. And I'm going to just show you through a couple of ones, but localization, personalization, and utility production cost are standard. We're talking about industries and localization. That's a $54 billion worldwide industry. Just localizing content, taking English format movies, right, and syndicating them in French, for example. It's a big industry. It's also historically a very expensive, human-based, almost exclusively human-based industry. Veritone, we're heavily involved in a lot of those areas, working both directly with the studios and the production houses to slowly find ways for automating a lot of that effort, right? Second is accessibility. Our own Rupal Patel, who's going to be on a few panels today, many of you know her as from Vocal ID, which is now part of the Veritone family. She's going to be talking a lot about prosthetic voices, giving voices back to those who have lost their voice or capacity to speak. I really encourage people to try to check out some of those sessions today or come by our booth to learn about that. But accessibility is not just for the impaired. Accessibility is many people want to consume content in their native language, right? Or if we want to export English format content to 25 different countries, today that is an incredibly expensive effort for localization. We're now helping to automate a lot of that, and some of it in near real time. So please stop by. We're happy to give you demos on a multitude of these different use cases. Veritone, when our approach, working again with some of the largest broadcasters and content IP owners, we have to think of the complete life cycle of this voice. We look at a voice, again, as an extension of the individual. It has to be protected. The voice model, once we've created it with the right amount of training data, the usage, who has the rights to even access that model? Forget about just the output of the MP3 file that you ultimately hear over the air or that's embedded into the movie, but who has rights to, it's like your vocal cords, right? Who has control over that? Similar to our defense and support of IP integrity for our big licensed customers, as I mentioned, like CBS News, we take that same position with our talent. So when we look to help create, even the training data we hold, right, personal. So we will, and we'll talk about it at the end, but we will not build a synthetic voice model, even though many of us have the capabilities of doing it, without the expressed both verbal and written approval of the actual individual or talent. Obviously, in the case if it's posthumous, it has to be direct authorization from their estate. But it starts there. It starts with the training data. It starts with the building of the model, right? It starts with the protection and access to invoke the model, all the way down to the output of the audio file, whether it's the MP3. And what we've done is we've actually have been able to debunk some, let's say, malicious groups out there that are representing this as a real voice. We can prove it's not. We can look at actually the original training data, right, that we have, that's the approved, all the way to the synthetic voice that's created. So just very similar to our passion for helping our clients monetize all this content, we have equal passion to help them protect it. And we use that both through process and through different technologies. Just one example, and these are live. So if you listen to DraftKings, big sports betting company out there, most of their advertisements that you now hear over either it's digital or over the air, even including AM and FM, all synthetically driven. Ellen Kay, who the voice of the Grammys, been on the air, she's on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. All of her local weather reports and everything you hear now, and on her website, all synthetically driven, but personalized. So let's listen to a couple of these.
Weather tonight is mainly clear and a low of 49 degrees. Tomorrow for St. Patrick's Day, 54 degrees and sunny at 6 a.m. in time for the Ellen K Show, here on Coast 103.5, powered by Morongo Casino. Good times.
Ross Tucker, host of the Even Money podcast for DraftKings, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. DraftKings Sportsbook is live in Wyoming with mobile sports betting. And for a limited time, DraftKings Sportsbook is offering new customers $200 in free bets instantly if they bet $1 on any football game. You heard right. DraftKings is giving all new customers $200.
All right, so it's, there's a lot of responsibility there, right? Those are completely synthetic voices. If you had that talent actually sitting here today, right, it would be challenging for them to distinguish whether that was the real voice or not. The modality of what you just heard there was text-to-speech, right, including that inflection, which was pretty impressive, right? So your ability to take a written script in text format, run it through the model, obviously, and the output is the MP3 or whatever format you're looking for in the audio. We also support speech-to-speech modality, right? There are instances often that just you cannot capture the nuance or, I'd say, exuberant inflection of certain voices. So we will, for many of our talent, build not just a text-to-speech model, but a speech-to-speech model, meaning we will have another human input the voice, right? So it's actually taking audio to audio conversion versus going from text to audio conversion, all right? So again, the goal here is, what's the use case, right? Don't always try to use just the same technology for every use case. What is the end game here? Is it an advertisement, or is it somebody who's going to be speaking to a large live audience? It may warrant or the need for speech-to-speech versus text-to-speech. Podcast network, another big use case that we're dealing with, working on. Podcasting has blown up, as we all know. The super majority of the biggest podcast shows are all in English. So we're working directly with many of the largest studios, podcast studios out there, including iHeartMedia, one of the largest podcast companies on the market, and helping them localize and convert their podcast almost purely programmatically into like 15 to 20 different languages, depending on the format of the show. That's happening now. So just an example is you may recognize the individual on your left, and that's the, I forgot the name of it, but Park Entertainment, and that's the Entourage team, right? They have their podcast. The Chad and Cheese podcast is kind of the preeminent HR-related and talent acquisition podcast. And sounds profitable. Everybody knows Brian Barletta, kind of speaks around our industry a ton, doing the same thing for him. The goal here is we want to have all this content accessible and localized into as many languages as possible, and taking all the killer content that's international in foreign languages and converting those to English so we can have more exposure to that content as well. It's on the business side, it's just free money, literally. 16% of 60% of free pickup of audience just to convert your programming into Spanish, right, in the United States would be a 16% on average pickup in terms of listening audience or impressions. So think about that just in terms of scale. More recently, and our team is going to talk about this tomorrow, but this one is probably the most exciting thing that I've worked on in a long time, is using our synthetic platform and in partnership with the leading sports data company and sports data AI company in the world, Stats Perform, we've launched a new platform where now people can get pregame, postgame, and actually play-by-play content of really thousands of different sporting events live in synthetic voice and in different languages, right? It's a mouthful, but think about that. So when you see on your phone, you see stats, like 3 balls, 2 strikes, he swings, he misses, right? And it shows up on a multitude of different interfaces and applications. We now have created a voice, natural language voice representation of that. That's also localized. right? So imagine you can bring in background noise of the crowd cheering. You can do dynamic ad insertion. You can do dynamic weather reports during the game, right? They're here today at our booth, and I don't want to steal their thunder, but Sean and Steve Zeller from Stats are going to be talking about this tomorrow, and it's really exciting. So we're taking this to the market immediately, and we're trying really hard to be up and running by even the World Cup, which is just here in November. So this same real-time technology that we've built and launching with Stats, we're also doing the same thing with weather, traffic, right? And so don't think of this as just delayed text-to-speech. This can also be dynamic and in real time. I'll let you guys meet up with them later. But it's a great demo. You're going to be able to see it live and actually listen and watch to it live. So lastly, and then I'll turn it over, is, as I mentioned a few times, AI is a powerful tool. Machine learning is a very powerful tool, as the previous individuals represented on about cautions. Same thing here. We understand the responsibility of and the concerns of deepfake. On the commercial side, many of us remember the Napster versus the iTunes, right? Napster was huge. Everybody was ripping off music, right? Yes, it was a catalyst to change the industry, but it took legitimate concerns like Spotify and iTunes and others to bring it. That's our responsibility, right, in this group, is, there's an industry here of the people we have to protect. Do we have the right technologies and processes? Organizations like the Open Voice Network, right, that are going to help protect not just the user, but the IP owner. And additionally, is what about the individuals, right, in terms of accessibility? Yes, we've raced to try to, as a public company, we need to generate revenue. But there's also so many killer use cases of helping those in need, who have accessibility needs, who have deficiencies, those who have lost their voice or are losing their voice, or people who sadly are knowing they're going to pass soon. Can they capture, right, those attributes of loved ones so they can actually, listen to their grandparents when they pass away? Some people have very strong opinions about that. Some people are like, well, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. But the reality is that this is possible today. And again, at 4 p.m. today, Rupal Patel is going to be talking about this in detail, which is really, really exciting. 2 examples here. April Heaslin, a brilliant PhD. She lost her voice. This is allowing her to speak again. They're actually working with doctors to include the voice model in the voice box itself, not just digitally. Another one is Bill Nudi. He was the former chairman CEO of NCR. He lost his voice as ALS came on in onset for him. But his son was getting married, and he wanted to be able to communicate in the wedding video for his son. He created with actually Rupal's team and Vocal ID, they created a fantastic hyper-realistic version of model for his voice. He participated in that. These are the kind of things, right, that I think that are at our disposal. We're investing in them, and I think a lot of companies are too. So my point is here, it's not just about profits, it's about AI and synthetic for good, and I hope you guys can participate and listen to that. And I talked a little bit about that, right? John and the team at the Open Voice Network, I really applaud their efforts of not just protecting the individual when they're having a conversation. Who's protecting my voice when I'm having a conversation with a bot? On the flip side, we're in the business, obviously, of protecting the IP owner, right? Making sure Tom Hanks' voice and others, right, doesn't get misappropriated. So it's a two-way street here. But again, all companies, in my opinion, need to be investing, right, in the integrity of the industry, both consumer protection side and on the IP rights side. And that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Ryan, thank you so much. Thank you.